Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Questionable Lock, where we give you free and current sports bets from a rather questionable group of avid sports goers. I'm Taylor Stahl.
I'm Carson Marsh.
And I'm Sebastian Natashi, and today we are joined by Steve Mason, host, one half of the show Mason Island on ESPN LA Radio, a host of the Culture Pop podcast himself. Mace, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on the show. That was a very nice thing of you to do. You know what? Let's get right into it. We're going to talk LA sports today, talk about some of our favorite teams. A big year for LA sports. We got double champions, Lakers and Dodgers.
Yeah.
What was your favorite LA sports moment this year?
Well, it's really tough. Obviously, we won 2 championships, so it's one of those two. I happened to be at Arlington, Texas for the Dodgers World Series championship. I had my own threshold for what risk I was willing to take with COVID and all that stuff, and I decided I would not miss my favorite team winning a World Series. So I was there for that moment. That probably was my personal highlight for the year.
Mace, I'd have to agree with you on that one. I was also there in Arlington, Texas.
Nice.
The Dodgers won. They are my all-time favorite team, and that was definitely the highlight of my 22 years. Like, for sure, that I still dream about it to this day, but definitely one of the highlights of forever and ever. And I hope
you realize the last time they had won, you were not even alive.
I wasn't even thought of. I think my mom was my age right now. Like, seriously,
That's
I
crazy.
think she was exactly my age right now.
Yep, we waited our turn. We ultimately got there. It was a phenomenal World Series. I couldn't have been more excited. Yeah,
100%.
What did it feel like for you being there? Obviously, I know you were at the last couple. What did it feel like to finally get over that hump and see them celebrating like that?
Yeah, I'd been in Boston and I'd been in Houston. It felt different. It felt weird, first of all, because there were no regular fans. It was kind of surreal and weird in that building. It just didn't feel like you were necessarily at a real baseball game. But once you're locked in, and I, put my headphones in and I'm listening to the game as I'm watching it and BSing with some of the media people. I saw some of my friends there, Steve Futterman, Beto Duran, people I work with all the time that I hadn't seen in a long time. So it felt weird, but exciting. And the thing that I think made it great was there were just enough Dodger fans. Like, I would walk back to I long walk back to my hotel, and I would end up walking with Dodger fans who happened to be staying at the same hotel. And it was like a little club. We're all sort of breaking the rules a little bit by being at the World Series. And everybody goes to the bar afterwards and everybody gets a drink. It was actually, there was a hardcore group. Like, you had to be a really hardcore fan, I think, to go to that World Series, because it took a lot of effort, testing and protocols and all that business. So the hardest of hardcore fans were there, and I think that's what made it cool.
I could not agree more. Like, I had the same experience in my hotel, just Dodgers. I don't think I saw anyone that wasn't a Dodger fan in Texas that entire time I was there.
Yeah, I think it was heavy Dodgers, not a lot of Rays fans.
I didn't even see normal people there. I just saw only Dodgers fans.
Yeah, only Dodger fans. Exactly. Exactly.
You guys are probably in the same place, honestly. You guys might have seen each other and not even known.
Totally could have. I was right across that lake. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I was very emotional the entire time. The moment they won, I was in tears. I'm glad you didn't see me.
Yeah. No, I was on the air within 10 minutes of when we won. I was on ESPN doing a post-game show. So it was really fun to take calls from fans that night too.
I couldn't imagine.
Couldn't contain the excitement then. What about for this season coming up, Trevor Bauer, one of the best acquisitions we've seen in a while. What is your feeling going into this season, especially now that it's a little bit more normal than last year's?
Yeah, going to be more normal. Stan Kasten, the president of the Dodgers, sent out an email, I guess it was last week, saying that they are hopeful that there will be some fans in the stadium for the opener, which is actually, optimistic, and I'm all about it. I think we need as much optimism as we can possibly get. I'm planning to be there for the opener. I think this team is absolutely, it's not very often that you win a World Series and when the team comes back the next year, you say they actually got better. but the Dodgers did actually get better. If you think about that pitching staff, if you think about Buehler and Kershaw, and then in that 3 slot, you've got the reigning Cy Young Award winner. You've got David Price, a former Cy Young Award winner, and then a few young arms. Julio Urias is going to be fantastic. Dustin May is there. Tony Gonsolin is there. They're absolutely loaded. And over the course of a 162-game season, at times they're going to be running with a 6-man rotation. And there will be a stretch where Clayton Kershaw goes on the DL, which will be sort of like rest. It'll be a break for him, and that's going to be okay because they've got so many arms. I just think from a pitching perspective, they're absolutely loaded, and Mookie Betts makes everything better. He is an absolute star. Even when he's not raking, he's playing defense. He's making a great throw. He's stealing a base. I mean, Mookie Betts is right now, him and Bellinger, you're talking about focal points of the franchise, and they are absolute studs.
Mm.
So on that, Vegas has the Dodgers projected win total at 101.5 games. Are you taking the over/under? I don't know if you're a betting man, but if you were putting up money, where you take the over or under on that, definitely a very high total.
Give me the over. I think that's a 105 win team. The 101, I mean, let's face it, they've actually done this a couple of times now. Didn't we win? I think we won 105 the year we beat the Astros in the World Series. So it's been done. They've gotten there. And I just think there's so much depth on this team that over the course of a 162 game season, we're going to absolutely kill it.
So what do you think about, we lose Jock, we lose Kike. Those guys were obviously a huge part, especially of our outfield depth. How can they, the pitching staff stacked, loaded, but what can we do there? Who do you think is going to step up and take over those spots?
Those are huge hitters too.
Yeah, I think A.J. Pollock is going to be your everyday left fielder, and I don't think we'll see him in a platoon, and I think he'll survive that way. That's normally where you'd see Jock plugged in. We're going to miss Kike because he played everywhere, but I think we've got obviously Chris Seager who does that, and Chris Taylor who does that, and
Corey Seager.
And Corey Seager, but we've also got Edwin Rios, who I think is going to be a really good all-purpose piece for them. He can play left, he can play third, he can play first. I expect to see a lot of him, and he's a young kid. He can hit. I mean, he hits for power. I think he's going to be a guy to make an impact this year.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited for them. I'm hoping. Opening day just got me so excited. Opening day at Dodger Stadium. There's nothing like that. But we'll go to the next champion, the Lakers. Okay. Got the job done. Did you watch the game last night against the Suns?
Yes. I don't miss a game.
Okay, what did you think about? We have Gasol late scratch, Kuz late scratch, down AD still. They were in it until Book got ejected, and then the bench guys for the Suns stepped up. What do you think went wrong last night? The same issues we've been seeing, defensive effort, or is it just all-star break?
There's a little, they weren't as locked in defensively as they were over the weekend. They held 2 teams under 100 points, and they were absolutely, locked in defensively. Last night, I think we saw that a little less, but part of it was diminished numbers. I mean, They really didn't have any rim protection without Gasol in there. They started Montrez, who I don't think that's his best role. I think he's best coming in off the bench as opposed to being a starter. And when Caruso went out on top of everything else, I think the fire really came out of the defense to some degree. I thought when Booker got ejected, I thought, all right, this is a game we're going to win. But it just wasn't there. If you face a team that shoots 55% from 3, you're going to lose most of the time. And that's what Phoenix did last night. I think off the bench, they were 7 of 11 from 3. Their bench players were. So you face a team that's that red hot, and ultimately the game means a lot. Like, we can't say Phoenix was a measuring stick for us, but Phoenix is definitely saying the Lakers are a measuring stick for us. So I think that there's an element of they had something to prove. They want to be contenders in the West, and they absolutely are. That is a really, you got Chris Paul and you've got Devin Booker and you've got DeAndre Ayton and you've got that bench, you got a shot. I mean, I think that's probably a 4 seed or a 5 seed going into the postseason this year. But I think they felt like they had a lot to prove last night.
Well, so that's what happens. You're the champ. You're going to get everyone's best shot. They move up to the second best record, not only in the West, but in the NBA. You said you see them as like a 4 or 5 seed.
Yeah.
What teams, maybe besides them, who's going to get that 2 or 3? Can anyone in the West even challenge the Lakers?
During the regular season, yes. I think Utah will probably finish as the number 1 seed because that's the way they're playing. And we saw what they did last week. That was a game where I was really disappointed in terms of defensive intensity on our part. But I think they're there. I think the Clippers are there. I think Phoenix is there. I mean, there's a cluster of teams that I think are around the top. I think we wind up as the number 3 seed, facing a team like, let's say,
the Warriors, maybe
the Warriors or Portland
yeah.
In the first round. That's the kind of matchup I'm expecting. But I don't think the Lakers are playing for seeding. I don't think it's important. Like, I think Anthony Davis should stay in bubble wrap as long as possible, as long as it takes for him to be 100% healthy. I don't want to run him out there at even 95%. I want a healthy AD because the games that matter aren't going to be the ones in March. They're going to be the ones in late May and June and into July. Those are the ones that count.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carson.
Mace, if you're the Lakers, would you rather face the Suns or the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals in a series of 7?
I'd rather face the Suns. The Suns, I mean, Kawhi has been there and has done it twice. Nobody with that Phoenix Suns team has played at that altitude before. Even Chris Paul has wilted in the postseason over the years. So although he's been there, has never been a champion. And I don't think he's ever been out of the second round. I don't think Chris Paul has ever been out of the second round. So yeah, I'd much rather face Phoenix for that reason.
Yeah, many botched opportunities for CP3 with the Clippers organization.
Yeah.
So earlier in the season, a lot of the NBA MVP talk was surrounding LeBron. Now it has kind of shifted. In your perspective, who is the NBA MVP for you so far this season?
I think it's LeBron. I think Embiid is very close. If the vote were held today, I think LeBron gets it. And the thing about the MVP award is that it is about, like, this is weird to me. So if you say who's the best player in the NBA, first name that comes to mind is LeBron James. But the best player in the game doesn't always win the MVP. Otherwise, LeBron would have a bunch more of these things.
Probably
but I think
7.
Exactly. But there's a narrative that goes on with the MVP award. There's this idea of whose turn it is and what's the story about this guy. And to me, LeBron has got a really compelling story this year. He's coming off a championship. A championship that a lot of people thought he couldn't win. And he's in his age 36 season. He's in his 18th year. It's the year that Tom Brady was able to do what he did at the age of 43. This longevity narrative is a really big one right now, and LeBron plays into that. Embiid is having a spectacular season, but right now I would give my vote to LeBron.
So if the Lakers keep looking like we have been the next couple, or for the next couple of weeks, kind of 500 ball, probably over, getting by teams, but not playing spectacular. I think that if Joel keeps doing what he's doing, the Sixers hold on to that 1 seed. They are going to give it to him. I know, Carson, you agree. You think Embiid was the front runner, but what do you think? For beyond this season, can LeBron keep playing at this level? Can he keep playing at this MVP level?
I mean, I see no reason why he can't. Until I see otherwise, I'm going to assume that this is LeBron. He's a guy that's got the longest prime of any athlete in our lifetimes, right? I mean, definitely in your lifetimes. The idea that LeBron is going to wear down or he's going to be less of himself, less than the greatest player, I don't know even what that looks like, because I would argue that he's been at the peak of the mountaintop for 10 years. Mm-hmm. He's not really getting better. He's not really getting worse. I mean, he just is the complete ultimate NBA player. So until I see otherwise, I don't know what LeBron is going to look like. I mean, I assume that there's going to be some sort of, generational passing of that torch ultimately to Anthony Davis, but it's certainly not going to be this year. And I can't imagine it's going to be next year either.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking at first team all defense this year. I'm with that. He's been great on the defensive end, and I mean, I hope playoff LeBron comes out. I hope AD stays healthy, and we should have another ring. The Nets are a little scary, but we should be all right.
Yeah.
Mace, what do you think about the 3-headed monster that should come out of the East? We will see, but a potential finals matchup, Lakers versus Nets. We saw it a couple weeks ago without KD or Kyrie. What do you think this matchup would look like if these teams meet in June?
Well, first of all, I think it's going to be Philly. I still think it's going to be Philly. I don't think Brooklyn's got a matchup for Joel Embiid. If Embiid is healthy and Ben Simmons is still racking up triple doubles and they're still knocking down threes with Seth Curry and Danny Green and guys like that, Shake Milton. I think Philly is the team that I'm going to pick to come out of the East because I don't know what Brooklyn looks like when it's all together. Like those three guys haven't played together a lot. I think they've got 5 games maybe together, something like that.
Yeah, even.
We know what Harden and Kyrie looks like, but we don't know as you get into a stretch run and as you get into the playoffs, who really does want the ball in their hands? Who's going to demand that the ball be in their hands? I think those questions are yet to be answered. And I still think, and they've played better defense lately, but I still think defensively, it's going to be a question mark for them all the way through the postseason. In terms of matching up with the Lakers, as far as star power goes, that's an unbelievable star power NBA Finals. If you've got KD and Kyrie and James Harden and LeBron James and Anthony Davis in one finals, I can only imagine what that's going to look like from a ratings perspective. It's definitely the most exciting finals. I still am going to put my money, and it's partly because I've got a bet with Ireland. It show's called Questionable Locks. I've got a bet with Ireland that he took Brooklyn and I took the field. And we bet, let's see, I would pay him with a bottle of Camus Select. He would pay me with some Granddaddy Purple OG, which is my particular strain. So we've got a wager. So I'm going to stick with Philly on that. But I do think Philly's going to be really tough to beat. That's a great Eastern Conference Finals.
How many games do you think it would go to? Lakers-Philly?
Lakers-Philly is a 6-game series.
Okay.
Because I don't think we've got an especially good matchup for Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And frankly, nobody's really got a great matchup for Joel Embiid. We don't have a back to the basket center that can play with Embiid down low. Certainly Gasol is great covering the arc and does great mid-range defense. But I don't think we've got anybody who can bang down low. I guess the closest we've got is Montrez, who can get physical down there a little bit, but we really don't have that clear answer. So I think that's a 6-game series.
I think in their matchups too with Mark on the Raptors and stuff, Joel has dominated him. It's something bad where Joel gives him like 30 and 10 every time they play. So that definitely is a concern. I still think the Nets are going to be the ones to come out.
Yeah.
Like you said, who's going to guard Embiid? No one can guard KD. No one guard Kyrie. No one could guard James Harden, especially end of playoff games, get into those ISO situations. We have LeBron, we have AD.
Well, my question is, when does ego come into play? In other words, you talk about the end of the game and you talk about an ISO situation. At what point does Kyrie get upset because he's not the end of the game ISO guy? And then how does that sort of hurtness or upset, how does that carry over? How does that emotion carry over? When you find out, Kyrie left Cleveland because he wanted to be the guy. Well, what if you go to a new team and then you're still not the guy? What does that do to your ego? And how do you feel about that? I think those questions, when everybody is watching those games, when we're in the NBA playoffs and everybody sees that, I'm not sure that there's not an ego clash in Brooklyn. I know there's not right now, but when it comes down to the shots that matter and the games that matter, I just wonder who really does get that shot, who makes that decision, and how does everybody else feel about it?
It's actually a great point, given that even before the season started, Kyrie's talking about Steve Nash in kind of a negative light. It would be interesting to see if they go down to a team. I'm a big Miami Heat guy.
Yep.
Hopefully that could happen. I mean, more of a team culture versus a 3-headed monster with all these 3 stars. It would be interesting to see if they go down early to a team like the Heat that they're supposed to beat, how those egos would come into play with like Steve Nash or somebody who definitely doesn't have an ego, but he's just trying to coach. But
a guy with not a lot of experience in terms of balancing egos and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they've had their fair share of struggles already this season. It's kind of masked over right now, but Like you said, defensively they've been a problem. I think to ensure they beat Philly, they need to make a deadline move or two, just like the Lakers need to do. Also, Damian Jones, we'll see. Not a bad. We'll see. Yeah, big body. I think last night was a tough one for him. I think too many minutes, but we'll see what goes there.
We'll see. And we're recording this obviously before the Sacramento game. We'll see. He'll get some time in the Sacramento game tonight with everybody hurt.
Everyone's out.
Definitely more on that later. I can promise you that. But shifting sports really quick, you're talking a lot about ego. Let's talk about the ego of some fans of your alma mater. Obviously, Fight On.
Yep.
That's the camera right there. Fight On. Let's talk about, I've been begging to ask you this question. What do you think about Coach Clay Helton? What do you think his future is at SC? And what do you think of the recent recruiting turnaround? Maybe a loaded question, but first off, let's start with Clay.
Okay. Well, let me just correct originally. So I went to Bowling Green State University. When I came to Southern California, I worked for USC as their network pregame host for 10 years. And I also owned the movie theaters at USC. That was my company owned the theaters called Flagship Theater. So I owned the University Village 3. So I've always taken USC to be my school for that reason. Technically not my alma mater, but definitely they've got my loyalty. Ireland will talk about this. I'm a Clay guy until I'm not. So I think he's coming off of his best recruiting season. I mean, right now, he just delivered a top 5 recruiting class. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to see these guys through. I looked at that USC schedule for next year. And once again, somehow, we got all of the tough games at home. And the road games are fairly easy. And we dodged Washington and Oregon once again. No Washington, no Oregon, Stanford at home, Utah at home. The schedule is very favorable. The one tough matchup is at Notre Dame. And that's a tough place to play in November. I've been to that game. It's always really cold. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a team. I mean, I hate to say this is a great year to imagine USC running the table. I think it is possible. I don't think it is out of control. I'm not being a total homer by suggesting that, because I think schedule-wise, they got a kiss from the Pac-12 scheduling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure, but we've seen in so many times before, especially like the last couple of years, not necessarily the last season, but the one before that, we had all the hard teams at home too, and then the easy ones that we had away were the ones that ended up biting us in the butt in the long run. So yeah, so I think that this recruiting class I think it could turn things around.
Yeah.
That's how I see this.
And by the way, and I think we've got, we had a couple of 1,000-yard rushers. We've got Carr and Pei. We've got Keaton Slovis coming back. Drake London's coming back. Defensively, we've got key pieces coming back. So I think it's going to be a really, really good team. It's whether or not they're able to run the table. And I think that's what every USC fan wants. Although I wonder if they win the Pac-12, go to the Rose Bowl, is that enough for Clay Helton to keep his job? I'll answer it. Yes.
Yeah. I think it would be a definite yes.
I think he has the backing, but I mean, for the last couple of years, you go to any USC social media post about the football team, fire Clay, fire Clay. I think he's been doing a fine job. Clay might happen to be a friend of the show, so we like him. Some of us like him, but I think USC, like you said, the recruiting class is there. They have all the talent in their backyard. And for the last couple of years before that, LA guys going to Oregon, going other places. And I think that's going to be the most important thing for him and keeping his job is just keeping these new guys coming in, and that should do it. But yeah,
he recruited California, and we wound up with the 2 top recruits in the country, which is saying something. And by the way, I remember way before you guys, I'm old enough to remember when people were saying fire Pete, fire Pete, fire Pete after a 6-6 season, when everybody was unhappy with Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll had to go, and what was Mike Garrett thinking and all that stuff. That actually happened. And so Clay Helton's been around the program for a long time. People have sort of made up their minds. He's got a chance now with this recruiting class to sort of turn the page and say, look, this is what we're actually doing here. Here's the program we're actually running. Here's what we've been building. I like this year for USC. I think it's going to be a really good year for the Trojans.
I agree. And I think that the coaching staff below Clay at this point in time, too, because it's been wishy-washy this entire past time that he's been a head coach. And I think that where they're at right now with the coaches below him, I think they're at also their best chances of turning things around this year.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's actually a good segue into the question. So given Governor Newsom's bill that will come into effect in 2 or 3 years, I presume, actually maybe at the end of this year, student athletes will be able to profit off of their likeness and images. Do you think that is a huge boost for USC, a team in a huge LA market?
It's an interesting question. It is. I think that there will be endorsement dollars available to the biggest stars in the biggest cities. Mm-hmm. So I think that means USC. If you are in Eugene, Oregon, what's the biggest endorsement? I guess Nike would be your biggest endorsement, right? You're already wearing Nike, but are you gonna be the endorsement guy for Joe's Ford or the Chevy Toyota dealers of Eugene, Oregon, whatever that is? There are just more opportunities, I think, in Los Angeles to capitalize. So yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. I think it's going to benefit big city schools. It'll benefit Stanford. It'll benefit Cal because they run off San Francisco, and it'll benefit UCLA and USC.
Yeah, we'll see about the Birmingham Chevy dealerships.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely some smaller schools too could benefit. I mean, the booster, the Alabama booster, the Booster Association, I guess, paid, I think, 20-something million for Nick Saban's home. So maybe they can make some more Chevy dealerships there.
Oh, believe me, they've been doing money handshakes at Alabama for as long as there's been time. I mean, there are kids. There's a great Real Sports documentary about how easy and free the money flows to athletes in the SEC, and particularly schools like Alabama. So there's no question there's money changing hands already. There will just be more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of a team that doesn't have any money, let's go to the Rams. Rams recently acquired Matt Stafford this year. This show is big on Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
For two first rounders and a third round pick. Do you think that Stafford is the missing piece for this Rams team that, I mean, every year it seems like they get to the playoffs and always gets very close, but hasn't been back since I think 2018 was
2018. Yeah. I was there for that game in 2018 down in Atlanta. I'm a Rams season ticket holder. I love the Rams. I am a complete homer when it comes to the Rams. So I will just put that out there up front. I'm a gigantic Matthew Stafford fan. I always have been. I always thought he put up numbers in relative obscurity because he's in Detroit. And Detroit never won anything. And all of a sudden, he is going to be plugged into a Sean McVay offense with weapons like Cooper Kupp and weapons like Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee. And that system, I think he's going to be unbelievable. This is a guy that Sean McVay wanted. I mean, Sean McVay at some point had a conversation with Les Snead, and they together reached the conclusion, Matthew Stafford is the guy we want to go forward with. And they made that deal. They did what it took. I love an organization that pushes all the chips into the middle of the table every chance they get and goes for it. And when you've got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on defense, you've got a defense, and some of these guys are going to be gone. Like I think Leonard Floyd is gone, and I think John Johnson is gone. But there's already talk that the Rams may sign Von Miller when he gets cut by the Denver Broncos. So they're going to add to this defense. They're going to add an edge rusher. Can you imagine like Von Miller being on this team? They do have salary cap issues. They're going to have to restructure a couple of deals, probably the Kupp deal and probably the Woods deal. I don't think they touch the Ramsey deal, and I don't think they touch the Aaron Donald deal, but they're going to restructure some deals, and they're going to be able to retool that defense, again, around those two anchors, Ramsey and Donald.
So 22 million in dead money with the Goff dump. Do you think this team is basically in win now mode right now, given that they don't have any first rounders till 2023 with the Ramsey trade and the Stafford trade? Do you think it's win now or bust for the Rams team?
It's definitely win now. Now, do I think it's bust? I mean, we've got Aaron Donald in his prime. We've got Matthew Stafford, who's 32 in an era when quarterbacks play to the age of 43, certainly 40. So we've got a quarterback in his prime. We've got young wide receivers. We got to rebuild the offensive line long term, but I don't see any reason why the Rams can't be in it every year. I really don't. They've got the resources. They've got a place that people want to come and play. I've gotten a chance to tour the SoFi Stadium, and it is just friggin' bonkers, man. It is like I have never seen a stadium like that. It is like out of the movie Blade Runner. It's like science fiction, sci-fi stadium. I mean, it's just like unreal. And the scoreboard is intense. And I mean, I think players want to play in Los Angeles. And this is their opportunity in a spectacular new stadium in the number 2 media market in the country. I think guys will always want to play for the Rams.
Well, speaking of playing for the Rams, someone decided something different. J.J. Watt signs with the Cardinals, making that division, the NFC West, honestly that much tougher. You got Nick Bosa, you got J.J. Watt. Seahawks typically have a good defense. Wasn't as good last year as it had been in years past. You know, you say the Rams could be getting to every Super Bowl, but you know, what do you think is going to happen in these divisional games that, you know, just got that much tougher? The Cardinals are going to be better this year than they were last year. Everyone in the NFC West, maybe besides the Seahawks, seems to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, Seattle's always going to be tough. I mean, I don't believe any of this Russell Wilson's getting traded stuff that's floating around out there. Russell Wilson will be there. San Francisco's got some key signings to make. They still have issues at quarterback. I just don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy, but I hope they believe Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy. Because I'd love to face that guy twice a year. Arizona is very good, but what we saw over the course of last season is that Kyler Murray started on fire, and slowly but surely teams figured out that offense. So Cliff Kingsbury is going to have to make an adjustment because defenses really caught up to them during the second half of the year, and they've added to their defense. Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt in that defensive. And those defensive linemen. That's a really tough defense. It's the toughest division in football, hands down. I think it's a year where all those teams can be 8-8 and above. That's how good I think it is. And if I was to pick a number for the Rams, I think 12 wins is probably where we're going to be. Given the fact that it's a tough division, you know, outside shot at being the 2 seed, but being in that division, you gotta scrap your way through. So, but I think a 12-win team is totally within reason.
For a division with such great coaches, where do you think McVay lines up with the likes of Pete Carroll, Shanahan, Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, Pete Carroll, you got to give it to because he's going straight to the Hall of Fame. I mean, He's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1 Super Bowl. He has been so steady in an era where teams go up and down and up and down. They have been so steady in Seattle under Pete. And he's also, I mean, he's teamed with John Schneider up there, who's the general manager. But Pete is making an awful lot of the player personnel decisions in contact with John Schneider. So I think Pete is the number 1 coach in the division. Now, the guy who's on fire and is going to try to catch him someday is Sean McVay. It's not an accident that Sean McVay's assistants wind up in big jobs somewhere else, whether it's Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, now Brandon Staley is in San Diego. Everybody wants what McVay has got. So clearly, McVay is the guy in the come. Shanahan's an excellent coach, got his team to the Super Bowl early in his tenure there. And Cliff Kingsbury, I'm not sold on. I don't know if that offense is for real or if it's gimmicks that people are going to catch up to. But he is if I was to rank the coaches in the division, I would say Pete is number 1, McVay is number 2, Shanahan 3, and then Kingsbury.
I think Pete, so, you know, you brought up a point. Pete makes a lot of the personnel decisions, and that's kind of been like the rumors that he continues to say, we're going to run the ball. we're going to pound it next year. And that's why there's all these floating rumors. Russ saying, I'm not going to get traded. But if I was, do you think that, obviously they've had a lot of success, but does Pete have to maybe take a back seat, maybe listen to Russ a little bit more? Otherwise, could be a Deshaun Watson type of situation.
Well, without question, Wilson has got to have sway in the franchise, and that's why he laid out those teams. He's basically saying, you know what? If you don't want to do it my way, here are the 4 places you can trade me, and I'll be okay with. I think that sends a message to the front office that the offense needs to open up a little bit. They did become an offense that just ran the rock last year. And Russell Wilson was not allowed to shine in the way he wants to shine. So I think that Seattle will just make that adjustment. I think we will see a more wide open Seattle offense this year, just because Russell Wilson had this conversation, made this noise, and threw out those teams that he would potentially accept trades to.
A lot of noise in this offseason.
A lot of noise. Yeah.
A lot of noise. So other than that, we have a segment called Are You High? Sponsored by Marvin's Mary Jane.
Oh, nice.
We would like to run you through just some bets that some people will be taking tonight. And we're going to ask you the question now, are you high? So would you be high to take the Rockets, losers of 12 straight, versus the Nets? Harden revenge game. What do you think?
Rockets versus, am I picking it straight up?
It would be a 10-point swing.
So I'm getting Rockets plus 10.
Yeah.
You're taking them? Yeah.
No, I'm laying the 10. I'm laying the 10. Yeah. I think Harden's going to be on a mission.
I'm with that. I think Harden's going for 60 tonight. Something crazy.
Absolutely.
You have to be so out of your mind, I think, to take that. And if they lose, come back to this video. Get on me.
Wow, that's bold right there. Come back to this video.
Come back to it. Come see. If Harden loses tonight, man, he's not gonna let it happen. I think
if Harden loses tonight, Harden is high, like for
Harden
sure.
slander, yeah.
Or he's at the strip club.
Harden slander would be too much. Too much.
For the next one, taking the Lakers tonight versus the Kings without LeBron, AD, Kuzma, Gasol. Kings are a 3-point favorite.
Wow, give me a big night for THT and give me the 3.
Okay,
I'm with it.
Okay.
Luke Walton. He's about to go. He's in danger of being fired from his job.
He is. Although Vlade's the one that should be fired.
Yeah.
Vlade's the one that chose Marvin Bagley over Luka Doncic.
I agree. Marvin was, never really in my eyes the guy. Could it be something similar with taking James Wiseman at 2, like the Warriors did this year, and LaMelo sitting there at 3?
Yeah, LaMelo, yeah.
LaMelo, the truth, that one of our other favorites on this show, I will say that. LaMelo is
LaMelo's awesome. He's on my fantasy team. I'm kicking ass with him.
I have AD on my fantasy team, and you're saying he has to sit out more. I can't have that.
You need him.
I need him back. Him and Christian Wood are out. So
I'm that way with KD. I need KD back. He's killing my fantasy team right now.
And then just 2 more that aren't necessarily bets, but they're from the rumor bill.
Okay.
Are you high to think that there's a bet going around 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 at plus 200? Are you high to think that?
No, I don't think you are high to think that. I'm trying to think. No, Trevor Lawrence, kid from Alabama, kid from BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson.
Who's the 4th one? Trey Lance. Yeah.
Dakota State.
Yeah. Guys reach on quarterbacks. I mean,
and Justin Fields. And Justin Fields.
No, then you're not high at all. I forgot about him. No, they're going to be a minimum of 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Now that we laid it out there. And I think it's really risky. I mean, half those guys are going to bust. I mean, you got a 50% chance of busting if you take a quarterback in the first round. And sometimes they all bust. I mean, the year that it was Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston both went bust, went 1-2. Carson Wentz and Jared Goff both went bust, 1-2. So there's no guarantee on quarterbacks. But teams are, let's face it, you're nowhere without a franchise quarterback. And that means everybody is always going to be looking for one.
There you go. And for the last one, would Deshaun Watson be high to waive his no trade clause to go to the New York Jets?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I lived in New York, worked in New York. I was on radio in New York. Who the Jets are in New York? They are the Chargers. They are the Clippers. They are the Angels. They are the lesser of the 2 teams. If you would have said
Totally.
Giants, I would have said, yeah, there's cachet in New York to be the quarterback of the Giants. There's no cachet in New York to be the quarterback of the New York Jets. And it is a woeful franchise that hasn't had any success in a long time. I don't think he should waive his no trade for the Jets.
I'm a Dolphins fan, so I absolutely loved
There you go.
what you just said.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
Well, Mace, as our first special guest on Questionable Walk, we would like to ask you one last question before we're done here.
Sure.
And it is, what was your who was your most memorable guest on your show?
Most memorable guest on my show was probably Larry King. When I was a little kid, I would listen to Larry King on radio all night long. And I kept the radio on. Larry King did an overnight show, Coast to Coast. And when I finally got a chance to talk to him, and I got a chance to talk to him a couple of times, I talked to him about a month before he passed away. So funny. And remembered, every story from Miami to Brooklyn to Washington to Atlanta, and remembered every single story in his lifetime, and was funny and engaging and smart, and you could goof around with him. Larry King, I think, is that guy.
I couldn't imagine. Yeah, it makes complete sense for sure. Being able to talk to him and pick his brain even would have been amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to do it for us on our first guest on the Questionable Lock podcast. You guys know the deal. You know where to follow us. Instagram, on Twitter at Questionable Lock. Make sure you check out the website, questionablelock.com. Even more changes are being made as we speak right now. As we speak, more changes are being made to the website. Make sure you follow Mace on Twitter at Venice Mace. Tune in to Mace in Ireland. Is it 12 to 3 or 1 to 4?
1 to 4.
1 to 4 every day.
7:10.
LA 7:10. Yep. And make sure you listen to the Culture Pop podcast. Also, Mace has guests on there all the time. I think you just did the Golden Globe show, right?
Yep.
And then
Did the Golden Globes.
one came out today.
Yep. Damian Bashir, who's one of the stars of the movie Land. He's a former Academy Award nominee. There's one with Bryan Cranston, my buddy Bryan Cranston, O'Shea Jackson Jr., all kinds of them there. They're really, really good. Check them out.
Yeah. Well, you guys heard him. You guys know it. questionablelock.com. Tune in for the locks. Follow the Twitter. We'll have that hit or miss section soon. And thank you for joining us.